You're leaving thousands of dollars on the table every month and you don't even know it. Right now, as you're watching this video, there are veterans collecting disability compensation for conditions they didn't even realize were connected to their military service. I'm talking about secondary conditions that stem from your already rated disabilities, and the VA owes you back pay that could stretch back years. Here's what's going to blow your mind. That lower back pain you rated at 30%? It's probably causing hip problems, knee issues, and sleep disorders that each qualify for their own separate ratings. But here's the kicker. Most veterans never file for these secondary conditions because nobody tells them they exist. I've seen veterans go from a 20% rating to 80% in as little as 3 to 6 months just by understanding this one concept. And by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly which secondary conditions you may qualify for and how to claim them the right way. If you're a veteran who's been denied before or stuck waiting years for results, don't try to figure this out alone. I've linked Re-Medical in the description box below. They specialize in helping veterans get the medical evaluations and documentation the VA actually looks for. It's the same starting point I used myself, and it can make a real difference in how fast and how strong your claim moves forward. But first, let me tell you about Michael. He's a Marine Corps veteran who had been living with a 30% rating for his PTSD for over 8 years. He thought that was it. He thought he had maxed out what the VA would give him. Then he learned about secondary conditions. Within 6 months, Michael's rating jumped to 100%, not because his PTSD got worse, but because he filed for all the secondary conditions his PTSD was causing. Sleep apnea, erectile dysfunction, migraine headaches, and even gastrointestinal issues, each one rated separately. His monthly compensation went from around $700 to over $2,000. Plus, he received back pay totaling over $30,000. The crazy part? Michael's story isn't unique. It's happening every single day, but only for veterans who know this system exists. So what exactly is a secondary condition? It's a disability that develops as a direct result of your already service-connected condition. The key word here is causation. If your service-connected disability causes or aggravates another condition, that second condition qualifies for its own separate rating and compensation. Here's where it gets interesting. The VA has to rate secondary conditions separately from your primary condition, so if you have a 30% rating for your back and develop a 20% rating for hip pain caused by that back injury, you don't just get 20%. The VA has to combine these ratings using their mathematical formula, which often results in a higher overall percentage than you'd expect. Now let me tell you about some secondary conditions that almost every veteran qualifies for but never claims. If you have any musculoskeletal condition like back problems, knee injuries, or shoulder issues, you're likely developing compensatory injuries in other parts of your body. Your body compensates for injured areas by putting extra stress on healthy areas. Have a 30% back rating? You could file secondary claims for hip pain, knee pain, ankle problems, and even neck issues. Your body is working overtime to compensate for that damaged back, and every compensation pattern creates new injuries that qualify for separate ratings. Mental health conditions create an entire web of secondary conditions that most veterans never consider. PTSD, depression, and anxiety don't just affect your mind, they create physical symptoms that each qualify for their own ratings. Sleep disorders are huge secondary conditions for mental health issues. If you have PTSD, you almost certainly have sleep problems. Sleep apnea, insomnia, nightmares, and other sleep disorders each qualify for separate ratings. I've seen veterans get 40 to 50% ratings just for sleep conditions secondary to their mental health issues. Erectile dysfunction is another big one that veterans are embarrassed to claim, but it's directly connected to both mental health conditions and certain medications prescribed by the VA. If you're taking antidepressants or other psychiatric medications that cause erectile dysfunction, that's a secondary condition worth applying for if you suffer from it. Gastrointestinal issues are massively underreported. PTSD and anxiety cause real, measurable digestive problems. Irritable bowel syndrome, gastroesophageal reflux disease, and other digestive conditions frequently develop secondary to mental health issues. These aren't minor ratings either. Severe IBS can be rated at 30% or higher. Here's something that's going to shock you about medication-induced secondary conditions. Any side effect from VA-prescribed medications can potentially qualify as a secondary condition. weight gain from psychiatric medications that leads to diabetes or sleep apnea, liver problems from long-term pain medication use, even dental problems from medications that cause dry mouth. The VA prescribed these medications to treat your service-connected condition. If those medications cause new health problems, those problems are secondary to your original service-connected condition. Most veterans never make this connection, but it's a legitimate pathway to additional compensation. Tinnitus is probably the most underclaimed symptom to a secondary condition out there. As of late 2025, early 2026, any veteran with hearing loss and tinnitus should file it. But here's what most people don't know. Tinnitus can also be secondary to head injuries, TMJ disorders, and even certain medications. That ringing in your ears isn't just annoying, it's worth 10% compensation minimum. Mental health secondary conditions work both ways. Physical disabilities often lead to depression, anxiety, and adjustment disorders. If you're dealing with chronic pain from a service-connected physical condition, the depression and anxiety that develops from living with that pain qualifies as secondary mental health conditions. I've seen veterans with severe physical disabilities develop secondary PTSD just from dealing with their medical trauma and the changes to their quality of life. These psychological impacts of physical disabilities are legitimate secondary conditions that deserve separate ratings. Here's a secondary condition category that almost nobody talks about but could apply to thousands of veterans: medication interactions and contraindications. If you're taking multiple VA-prescribed medications that interact with each other and cause new health problems, those problems can qualify as secondary conditions. Sleep medication that causes memory problems. Pain medications that cause depression. Blood pressure medications that cause erectile dysfunction. The list goes on and on. Most veterans just accept these side effects as part of life, not realizing they could be getting compensated for them. Now let's talk about how to actually claim these secondary conditions properly. The medical evidence requirements are different from primary claims. You need to establish a clear connection between your rated condition and the new condition you're claiming. This means getting medical opinions that specifically state your secondary condition is at least as likely as not caused by your primary service-connected condition. Generic medical records aren't enough. You need doctors to make the connection explicitly. One strategy that works incredibly well is getting a comprehensive medical examination that specifically looks for secondary conditions tied to your existing ratings. A lot of veterans go years without a thorough review and never realize new conditions have developed along the way. And if you're starting to realize your claim might be missing key medical evidence, don't stress. I've linked ReMedical in the description box below. They connect veterans with licensed medical professionals who provide the kind of detailed evaluations VA raters actually look for, which can help strengthen your claim and avoid unnecessary delays. Private medical opinions can be powerful for secondary claims. If you have a doctor who understands the connection between your conditions, their opinion carries significant weight with the VA. Don't rely solely on VA doctors who might not be incentivized to find new conditions to rate. Here's a timing strategy most veterans mess up. File all your potential secondary claims at the same time if possible. The effective date for secondary claims is the date you file, not the date the condition started. Filing multiple secondary claims together can maximize your back pay. But here's the most important thing about secondary conditions: they compound over time. Secondary conditions can cause their own secondary conditions. That hip problem secondary to your back injury might cause ankle problems and gait issues that each qualify for separate ratings. The veteran who understands secondary conditions and files strategically can see their disability rating climb significantly over time, not because they're getting worse, but because they're claiming all the conditions they're entitled to. Mental health conditions are especially prone to creating chains of secondary conditions. PTSD causes sleep disorders, which cause weight gain, which causes diabetes, and sleep apnea, which cause cardiovascular problems. Each link in this chain potentially qualifies for separate compensation. Most veterans stop at their initial rating and never explore what else they might qualify for. They leave tens of thousands of dollars in compensation on the table because nobody taught them how the secondary condition system works. The VA isn't going to tell you about conditions you might qualify for. They rate what you claim, not what you might be entitled to. It's your responsibility to understand your rights and file for everything you qualify for. Here's my challenge to you. Look at your current disability ratings and ask yourself what other health problems have developed since your initial claims. Are you dealing with pain in areas that compensate for your rated injuries? Have your mental health conditions created physical symptoms? Are you experiencing side effects from VA medications? Every one of those issues could potentially qualify as a secondary condition worth significant monthly compensation. The veterans who understand this system are the ones building substantial disability ratings and financial security. If this information is opening your eyes to compensation you might be missing out on, drop a comment below on what secondary conditions you think you might qualify for. I see every comment and often create follow-up videos based on the questions I see. And if you want to dive deeper into maximizing your VA disability compensation, check out my complete playlist on unlocking more VA money, linked in the description box below. I break down every aspect of the disability system that the VA doesn't want you to know about. These strategies have helped thousands of veterans increase their ratings and get the compensation they deserve.